On August 19, 1923, a rescue ship called the Donaldson broke through Arctic fog and anchored off the coast of Wrangel Island. The crew had come expecting to find bodies. What they found instead was a small woman walking down the beach toward them, wearing a reindeer jacket she had sewn herself, with a tabby cat tucked under her arm. She was 25 years old. She weighed less than 100 pounds. And she had just spent 8 months completely alone on one of the most hostile pieces of land on Earth, after every other person on the island had died or disappeared. When the crew boarded to inspect the camp, they wrote this in their report. Blackjack had mastered her environment so far that it seems likely she could have lived there another year. That woman was Ada Blackjack, a seamstress from Nome, Alaska, who had been hired to sew socks and repair boots. A woman who arrived on Wrangel Island with no hunting experience, no survival training, and a paralyzing fear of polar bears. She was the only survivor of 5 people, and she did it alone. But before any of that, before the frozen island and the dead men and the cat she talked to at night because there was nobody else to talk to, there was a mother standing on a dock in Nome with $50 a month and a dying son she needed to save. That is where this story actually starts. To understand what Ada Blackjack survived, you need to understand what she had already survived before she ever stepped onto a ship. She was born Ada DeLutuck on May 10th, 1898 in Spruce Creek, Alaska, a small settlement near Nome that no longer exists today. Her father died of food poisoning when she was 8 years old. Her mother sent her and her sister to a Methodist mission school in Nome, where she learned to read English and to sew. At 16, she married a dog musher named Jack Blackjack. They had 3 children, 2 of them died in infancy. Jack beat her, then abandoned her on the Seward Peninsula in 1921, leaving her alone with their 5-year-old son, Bennett, who was sick with tuberculosis. Ada walked 40 miles back to Nome. When Bennett was too tired to walk, she carried him. Back in Nome with no money and a sick child she could not afford to treat, she made the most painful decision of her life. She placed Bennett in an orphanage and went looking for work. She told him she would come back. She told herself she would find a way. Around this time, an Arctic explorer named Vilhjalmur Stefansson was quietly organizing an expedition to plant a British flag on Wrangel Island, a remote piece of land sitting 140 kilometers off the coast of Siberia. He needed a seamstress, someone to sew and repair winter clothing. He was offering $50 a month, more than Ada could earn any other way in Nome. She was told there would be other Alaska Native people on the expedition. She was told it would last 1 year. She was told there would be a supply ship the following summer. All 3 of those things turned out to be false. So here's the question that sits at the center of everything that followed. How does a woman with no survival skills, no hunting experience, and no preparation for the Arctic end up being the only person on that island, still breathing 2 years later? What did she know or find or build inside herself that 4 younger and more experienced men could not? Here is the complete answer to why it collapsed. And it starts not with Ada, but with the man who sent them all there. Vilhjalmur Stefansson had a reputation in Arctic circles for being brilliant and reckless in equal measure. He had written best-selling books about Arctic exploration, including The Friendly Arctic, which promoted the idea that the Arctic was survivable if you simply knew how to live off the land. His critics called it dangerously optimistic. His admirers called it visionary. The 4 young men he recruited for Wrangel Island were firmly in the admirer camp. Alan Crawford was 20 years old, a Canadian student. Lorne Knight was 28, an American with previous Arctic experience. Fred Maurer, also 28, had actually survived a shipwreck on Wrangel Island in 1914, which should have taught him something about the odds. Milton Galley was 19 years old and from Texas and had never seen ice in his life. When the ship left Nome, locals watching the loading dock were openly alarmed. The expedition was carrying only 6 months of food. Stefansson's plan was for them to live off the land for the rest of the year, hunting seal, walrus, and polar bear. Locals who had spent their lives in the Arctic knew what this meant. The men did not. On September 16, 1921, the 5 of them landed on Wrangel Island. The first year went tolerably. Game was available, the men hunted, Ada cooked and sewed, and summer arrived on schedule. The supply ship, a vessel called the Teddy Bear, was supposed to arrive that summer with fresh food, ammunition, and a relief crew. It never came. The sea ice that year was too thick to push through. It never came. The sea ice that year was too thick to push through. The ship turned back without ever reaching the island. When the 5 of them understood what that meant, everything changed. By January 1923, they were starving. The temperatures had dropped to negative 48 degrees Celsius. Knight had developed scurvy. His gums bled, his teeth were loosening. Purple spots had appeared on his legs where the blood vessels were breaking down under the skin. He could no longer stand without help. The 3 healthiest men made a decision. Crawford, Maurer, and Gala would walk across the frozen Chukchi Sea to Siberia, 90 miles of moving sea ice in Arctic winter, and find help. On January 28, 1923, they walked off the island. They were never seen again. Their bodies have never been found. No bones, no equipment, no trace. The most likely explanation, based on Arctic conditions that week, is that the ice they were crossing broke apart beneath them and dropped them into water cold enough to kill a person in under 2 minutes. That left 2 people on Wrangel Island, Ada Blackjack and a dying man named Lorne Knight. And now the question becomes the one that the rescue crew was still asking when they wrote their report 6 months later. How exactly does a woman hired to sew socks keep herself alive alone in the Arctic for the better part of a year? What happened on Wrangel Island between January 1923 and August 1923 was documented in one place and one place only. Ada Blackjack's own diary, preserved today in the Dartmouth libraries and available to read in its entirety online. For the first 5 months after the 3 men left, she was not yet alone. She was caring for Lorne Knight. And those 5 months were among the hardest of her life, for reasons that went beyond the cold and the starvation. Knight was deteriorating rapidly. He could not leave his bed. His legs had turned black from internal bleeding. He could barely eat because his teeth were falling out from the scurvy. Ada heated sand every day and placed it on his feet to keep the circulation moving. She rotated bags of oatmeal beneath his body to prevent bed sores. She emptied his bedpan. She cooked what little food remained and gave him the best parts. She wrote in her diary about the situation with a directness that is still stunning to read 100 years later. He never stopped to think how much it's hard for women to take 4 man's place, to woodwork and to hunt for something to eat for him and do waiting to his bed. What she did not write in the diary, but what multiple sources documented afterward, was that Knight blamed her for his condition. He berated her. He told her she was incompetent. He told her her husband had been right to leave her. He said it was no wonder 2 of her children had died. She absorbed all of this while simultaneously keeping him alive because she had promised to care for him, and she kept her promises. Lorne Knight died on June 23, 1923. Ada Blackjack was alone. She built a barrier of boxes around his body to protect it from foxes. The ground was frozen too solid to dig a grave. She moved into the storage tent with the cat Vic and got to work. She had already begun teaching herself to hunt. Her diary entry from May 21, 1923 reads, "I took empty tea tin and shot it. I shot right in it." That's pretty good for first-time shooting. By mid-March, she had already trapped 7 white Arctic foxes, catching the first one on February 21st. She built an observation deck on top of the storage tent so she could watch for polar bears at night, because the tent walls were not strong enough to stop one. She built skinboats, called umiat in Inupiaq, for hunting seals. She gathered birds' eggs from the coastal cliffs. She found the thin greens pushing through the melting tundra. The Inupiaq knowledge her family had passed down to her as a child, knowledge she had never thought she would need, was the difference between living and dying. She wrote 4 words in her diary during this period that tell you everything. I must stay alive. And then, I will live. She told the Los Angeles Times after her rescue, "I do not think I could have pulled through if it had not been for thoughts of my little boy at home. I had to live for him. Bennett was the reason. Not courage in the abstract, not survival instinct in general. A specific 5-year-old boy in an orphanage in Nome who had been promised his mother was coming back." On August 19, 1923, the Donaldson arrived. The crew found Ada asleep in the tent with Vic pressed against her chest. In the first hut they entered, they found Lorne Knight's body. She walked onto that ship with a single suitcase, the cat, and Lorne Knight's diary wrapped in canvas. She had promised to deliver it to his mother in Oregon. She did exactly that. She traveled to Oregon and handed it over in person. The story of what happened next is almost as remarkable as the survival itself, and considerably darker. Stephenson, the man who had organized the expedition, underprepared it, abandoned them, and never sent the supply ship on time, took the majority of the credit and the money that followed. He sold the rights to the story, he gave lectures, he wrote about the expedition in terms that positioned him as the visionary behind it. He paid Ada less than he had originally promised. She received her back wages, a modest amount, and went home to Nome. She used every dollar to take Bennett to a hospital in Seattle for tuberculosis treatment. He survived. He grew up. He had children of his own. Ada's gamble with her life paid exactly the return she had gone to Wrangel Island to earn. She refused to speak to reporters. She refused to write a book. She turned down every offer to tell her story publicly, not out of modesty, but because she had watched Stephenson profit from the deaths of those 4 men, and she wanted no part of whatever that looked like. She lived quietly for another 60 years. She died on May 29, 1983 in a care home in Palmer, Alaska at the age of 85. The book that finally told her story honestly, Ada Blackjack, A True Story of Survival in the Arctic by Jennifer Niven, was published in 2003, 20 years after her death. Her gravestone in Anchorage carries a single line: Heroine, Wrangel Island Expedition. Wrangel Island is a Russian nature reserve today. The cabin is gone. The observation deck she built is gone. The fox traps, the skinboats, all of it consumed by 100 years of Arctic weather. But the diary survived. It sits in the Dartmouth libraries, fully digitized, free to read for anyone who wants to meet her in her own words. She was hired to sew. She taught herself to hunt, trap, build, and navigate 8 months of Arctic winter completely alone, in a place that had already killed 4 men who were supposed to be the capable ones. She did not do it because she was extraordinary. She did not do it because she had been trained for it or because anyone expected it of her. She did it because there was a boy in an orphanage in Nome who had been told his mother was coming home. The next time someone tells you what you are not capable of, remember the seamstress who carried her son 40 miles across the Seward Peninsula, signed a contract for $50 a month, and survived 2 years on the edge of the world. Not because she was the strongest person on that island, but because she had the most reason to live. If this story moved you, subscribe. Every week we go beneath the surface of the stories the world thinks it already knows and find what is actually underneath them. I will see you in the next one.